Hey, folks, welcome back to another episode of Momentum Monday. Today, we're covering Coco's and Commodities' ludicrous run, Adobe's disastrous earnings report, the degen action coming out of Robinhood. Is it the end of the road for certain EV companies? And finally, we'll wrap up with Palantir's CEO's wild comments on short sellers. Then we'll take a big picture look at indexes and what's happening in markets, and then finally respond to the StockTwits community's top questions, and then wrap up as always with our stock picks for the week. My name is Tommy Trampo, and with us again is the chart wizard himself, Ivan Hoff, and the unicorn genius king, Howard Lindzen. All right, so for this week, you're starting off with Coco. It has been going absolutely bonkers and not on nearly enough people's radar. So, Ivan, what the hell is happening with these commodities, and should we be paying attention to this action?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy. This is a chart of, can you see that? The chart of
Yeah.
Coco for the past few years. It doubled in 2023, doubled in 2024 so far. And it's just, there's been a destruction of demand. And supply has, it's about the same, growing every year a little bit. But there is a famine going on in cocoa beans, and which only comes to show us that the world is not prepared for famine in some of those staples, and it's not just cocoa. Obviously, we've seen a rise in orange juice, in sugar. But if you think about it, 100 or so years ago, farmers around the world used to grow like 100 different kinds of bananas, potatoes, wheat, anything you can think of. There were 100 different kinds. And then over time, they decided to focus on only one or two types. They're the one that have the highest output, the one that are the tastiest, that the consumer like the most. And by concentrating and focusing so much on just one or two sorts, we become a lot more vulnerable to famine. And in the past 4 years, there's been a famine in cocoa beans, and there's been a destruction in supply. So I know this is not something that many people care about, but eventually, you see it in the consumer prices. So it's something to be aware of. And I mean, this is this is the chart of the year so far. It's not Bitcoin, it's not Nvidia or semiconductors. It's cocoa beans. It's doubled year to date. Howard?
Good synopsis. I think this just tells a story about price action and why everybody who gets the market bug, like you, Tommy, loves the markets. How can you not look at this and go, forgetting the fundamentals behind it, right? It's the only thing when I see this chart is I get sad that in high school and elementary school, kids aren't learning about price action and markets and how market behavior. I think about my son Max. He's 22. He came to me one day. He was playing golf with a buddy. Dave, started. He started a company called Senior Moment Bleacher Report. So I said, "Son, you're going to play golf with them." And he comes back. This kid has been in school and knows about things, but in university, he comes to me and goes, "Dad, he's very wealthy." And I said, "Oh." Because they Google. These kids Google names. He Googles a name and tells you what he sold his Bleacher Report company to Time Warner. And, he got the numbers all wrong because he assumed the dollar amount that he sold the company for all went to Dave Finocchio. And I had to explain to him at 22 that if you got to first factor in how much the VCs took, then you got to factor in, his employees and everything. And by the end of it, he's got maybe 5 to 10% of his company after 10 years, right? And that lesson taught him everything he needed about, how this stuff works. It's like, you got to break everything down. And the markets do that for people too. It's like when you study these price charts, people can pick up on this stuff very quickly, whether it's different markets. So Coco, listen, if you're following price action back in 2023, you saw some massive breakout out of a base. You didn't have to know much about cocoa. What do you do here? I don't know. I think commodities have a tendency to find supply when there's demand, whether it's oil going negative and people realizing demand is not going away forever, or when it's cocoa tripling or quadrupling over 3 years and people realizing we'll find some cocoa. So that's what you have to remember with commodities versus stocks is even in stocks, same thing. That when there's supply, demand will show up, and when there's too much demand, supply will show up. So be careful chasing it there.
So while cocoa might have been probably the hottest looking chart of the year, obviously the hottest trend is still everything to do with AI. And Adobe released what seemed to be like pretty solid earnings, but the market absolutely destroyed the stock following the report. Is this a continued reaction to the continuing AI story and the fact that there's going to be a lot of disruption in the image generation and image creation space?
Well, I'll take it. Listen, I mean, companies only going to get stronger with AI. The question is, didn't grow enough. You know, I, these are big companies priced for perfection, and if it's only going to, be flat on earnings, it's still going to be trading today at 30 times earnings, right? Which is, not cheap if a company's not growing. But this is, if you believe in Adobe long term, then you want things like this. You want 30-40% pullbacks because they're going to be more dominant from AI. So I don't know. Trend is broken. The growth, what a run. I doubt Adobe's going away, much like Intuit. A lot of these vertical software companies that dominant can surprise you. So, I haven't met an Adobe user with AI that didn't love from Malik and all the Photoshop guys. I haven't met a person that doesn't have something great to say about using Photoshop with AI. So, but yeah, I wouldn't buy this stock right here.
Okay, so the market is forward looking. People are looking at the good earnings that they reported and saying how come it sold off. They beat estimates. Well, those estimates and those earnings, they show the previous quarter, they show the past, which was probably already kind of reflected. What we need to mention here is that Adobe actually guided down significantly for next quarter, for next year. And this is why we see that reaction. So the market is just discounting that guidance. And it just could last only a quarter and then it could bounce back. We don't know. So far, I wouldn't touch it here. I would wait for some buyers to show up, even though that's a pretty big level here, 500. But
if you pull up a lot of these software stocks are, have done well and they're just slowly rolling over. If you look at IGV, I think it's kind of similar for the whole sector. Just a little bit rolling over here, but Adobe obviously worse than the other ones. So be careful here in software. Cloudflare had a great breakout, but given back a lot of the gains. NET. So it's kind of like when you gap up on earnings, NET.
I'm sorry.
So, yeah. So the sector itself, say look at that gap up. You don't want to see those kind of. Now, Cloudflare could be a great buy here. That's one I'm actually watching, but you don't want to see those gap ups get quickly sold off. So this is something to pay attention to, whereas there's some rotation and software doesn't look good at all.
So over this last few weeks, we're starting to see some more volatility, entering the market. And one of the best reflections of that is Robinhood released their trading data for February trading volumes. And it was off the charts, bananas, with just the amount of options being traded, just the amount of retail interest, going on within the platform right now. What does this tell you about where we're at right now in markets?
This is not. Go ahead.
Just because it's near and dear to my heart. Let's pull up a longer term chart. If we can, right? So you left for dead, including myself, right? My biggest problem with Robinhood as an early investor is, that's basically given up on the company is, vision and direction, right? The wallet size is small, right? They never use that early advantage of opening those millions accounts to attract wallet size. And it's hard not to chase revenue, and the revenue they've chased is fringy at best. I'm a millionaire and I don't trade options, right? So I don't give a shit about options, right? I think people should trade them, great, but I wanted, carousel of opening 10 accounts there. Well, for me, when I invested in Robinhood, I was like, Schwab. Let's be Schwab. Let's go not chase commissions. Let's chase wallet share. And because it's such a gift to be able to acquire users during that ZERP era. So the question to me, long term for Robinhood is, can they turn these 20, 100,000, these $25 to $100,000 accounts into $1 million accounts? And I don't see that yet. Right. I see a lot of other products that are solving that, and I don't see Robinhood solving that. I see them, and the stock kind of feeds that, right? They get the positive reinforcement of having a great quarter. What? Because of options trading. What happens when the VIX goes to 30 the next time, right? And this, so I worry, how you're getting paid versus Coinbase. If we pull up Coinbase, there's no options there, there's speculation, but they own their business. They really are executing. If you look at the lows, where Robinhood would hit the lows, Coinbase is up 6x off the lows. Robinhood's up 80%. So I think, will Robinhood play catch up to Coinbase, or is this kind of a peak in speculation short term? So I worry about how Robinhood's, behaving based on this price action. Go ahead, Ivan.
I mean, I was going to say that that report from Robinhood wasn't really surprising. We talked about it a few weeks ago when prices were going higher, and we knew that people were going to speculate and be more active. So nothing surprising in those reports, and there is a reason Coinbase and Robinhood are one of the best performers for the past few weeks, as anything crypto related, market related, has been on fire. So I mean,
sorry, go ahead, Ivan.
Yeah, we don't know if this will be a longer term move. So far for me, it's just a shorter term burst. But, as a swing trader, that's what I care about, like capturing those short term, 5 to 20, 30% moves. So, yeah, that's all I have.
Just a quick thought on Robinhood. If you pull back the chart, love to see them announce. With the valuation now, the market cap is $16 billion. So it's about where it was when I sold some stock back in 2016, 2017, right? So I'd love to see them use this market cap, relative to the rest of fintech, to do some acquisitions, to fill out the product line, to offer me services that I can move more capital there. So we'll see. I mean, right now it's a question of what does management do with this, jacked up stock price. I'm sure management thinks, we were once $50 a share. Let's hope to get that back. But, part of being a great public company is also having strategy around when to do acquisitions and when to grow your company in areas that you're not growing, not just options. So I think this is a pivotal moment for Robinhood. Okay.
Yeah.
So, on one hand, you're looking at companies like Robinhood that are sitting on lots of cash, have lots of options to do, with their future. Like, things are, there's a probability that they figured this stuff out. On the other hand, one of the other narratives we've been talking a lot about is the declining recently of what's happening in the EV markets. And I think we're starting to see a lot of that starting to come to head as Fisker bankruptcy rumors started to hit mainstream. That stock saw another 50% drawdown. I think either Thursday or Friday when that news started to hit. Is this the fully washing out of the last people who are all trying to chase the previous cycle's trends? And what do you see as the future of EV markets here?
With Fisker, let me say that I'm not so much good at picking stocks, but I've seen shitty stocks. Okay, patterns, on the upside are not that much different than patterns on the downside, right? It's very hard to change momentum when a stock is going up, but eventually law of large numbers, even if it's Apple, kick in. On a stock that's going backwards, I remember posting on Fisker without any knowledge of the company when I saw the chart break down to 5 and 4 and 3, that people, I just saw the cult-like behavior of people in the stream, that kind of hope, that weird belief. And I didn't know it would spread to the rest of EVs, to be honest, because I was just fascinated by when companies are really breaking. And I see it on StockTwits, and I've seen hundreds of them over the years. They do the same thing. And, people get caught up with the product or the story of the CEO. And I'm like, that doesn't matter. What matters is earnings. What matters is basic fundamentals over time. And we just never got them. We just got a lot of hype and promise. And you know what? The one thing these people didn't get right, and I've said it before, is young kids. It's just not that convenient to have an electric car, right? This next generation coming up, maybe Ubers, that'll make sense, but and self-driving cars. But when kids go on road trips, it's not easy. So Toyota, you know, is snuck up on people because of the hybrids and Honda. So again, I think there's just a bunch of things at play here. One of them is the terrible fundamentals of the EV companies, right? At a time when interest rates have risen. So I think there's more trouble to come.
Yeah, I mean, all good points. It's in general, it's very difficult to build a car company from scratch, from the ground up. And we talked about it, how 100 years ago there were hundreds of companies, hundreds of car companies, and only 3 of them survived. And this cycle is not going to be any different for the pure EV companies. And Elon Musk has said that many times. It's probably Tesla and then a few Chinese company will survive if you're pure electric. And Howard is right about it. There's been a lot more demand for hybrid vehicles around the world just because they're just more practical.
Yeah, and I'll say this, someone who can afford a car, I still like the sound of a Porsche. You're not going to get me to switch to an EV. I'm not a bad human because I drive a Porsche. I like the sound of it. The other thing is, what made Tesla great, and it's probably Elon Musk, is he diversified, right? He's using Tesla as a way to launch himself into space. So Tesla is not his only child. I'd be very careful. I'm a Tesla shareholder. Remember that. Like his butter now is his bread is now being buttered by SpaceX and Starlink, and as it's just very hard to run 2 companies, let alone 4 or 5. Very few people have, if count on my hand, the amount of people that could run 2 companies. So I'm very wary of, first of all, this trend catching up to Tesla. Right? Yes, I agree with Ivan that Tesla will survive, but that doesn't mean the stock can't go to 50 and he can't still be the richest guy in the world because of SpaceX and Starlink. So, the fans should be careful. It's very hard for one chart to outperform the rest of the industry.
So, one of the other big stories that came out of last week is that there are more stocks with cult followings, and one of the biggest ones to this day is Palantir, and they're being led by their kind of wacky CEO, this Alex Karp guy, who went on CNBC last week and called out all the short sellers, saying you guys are only shorting our stocks to make profit for your Coke habits and whatnot. What is your general reaction to when a CEO makes comments like that, targeted short sellers and all that stuff? Like, is that noise? Like, what is your reaction?
First of all, I own the stock, and I've never accused people. So the thesis on the streams when I bought the stock in 20 or 19 and 18 was that I truly believe in this defense boom, right? As countries look inward, but I don't do Coke. This is a product that I love. Trident Coffee, I'm pimping one of my companies. This is a Neutronic, and Ivan, you got to try this mushroom cold brew coffee. Trident. They're a local company with Navy SEAL guys backed it. But I don't know. That's a really bad look. I can't watch stuff like this. Right? I can't watch myself on video. I could watch you 2 guys all day, but I would hope someone would say something to me. There's just, as a grown person, that's how the markets work, short sellers. And if you execute well as a company, you want short sellers, right? That is fuel for good fundamentals, right? And if you have great fundamentals, short sellers are your best friend. So as a shareholder, I got to say that I'm considering exiting. I don't need aggravation or someone that sounds that dumb. Now, there's other stuff at play. There's a lot of people in crypto that must be on Coke based on what I know. And I don't think Coke users look to short sell. They generally tend to be people that dig in for very good reasons, because the risk of being short on any stock is just multiple of times riskier than being long a stock. A stock can only go to zero, whereas a stock that you're short can go to infinity, whether it was Qualcomm or a crypto stock or Coco. So I definitely hate seeing that. I do think MicroStrategy and some of these stocks that have done great have had tons of short sellers. But guess what? Why did MicroStrategy stock do good in front of short sellers? Because his fundamentals of buying Bitcoin were correct, however you like to say it. So he's now thrilled that there are short sellers there because they're kind of betting against his fundamentals of Bitcoin. So not a good look. Sorry, Ivan, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with everything Howard said. Every short seller today is a future buyer. And if you really believe in the future of your company and in its fundamentals, we want short sellers because they were just going to propel your stock further. And anytime a CEO goes to national TV and complains about short sellers, it just worries me. Why would you even acknowledge them?
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. If I was on a board of a public company and I've been on the board of late stage companies and I saw behavior like this, in the next board meeting, I go, "What the fuck are you doing? Like, what do you know that I don't know?" Because I now have to deal with your behavior because you're basically leaking something that now I have to deal with. You want your management team to not cause problems for the board because it's just more people talking about the stock and defending the stock. So terrible decision. But again, if the fundamentals are great, but
I don't even see that much short interest, like 1.2 days.
It's just a nonsensical thing to say, but who knows? It's the world.
Do you think there's any self-awareness? He sees a lot of success from Elon doing similar things, drumming up retail, people participating in the, is there any side of that where that's being like gamesmanship going on, or is it just a dumb move?
Don't know. I wouldn't do it.
No. All right.
And I would hope someone pulled me aside and slapped me after I do something like that, because that's the way great management should be. They don't want to screw their shareholders and make people distrust kind of your behavior. Elon's gotten away with it, but that's like 1 out of a billion.
Yeah, that's a wild clip. We'll link the clip below in the show notes if you haven't seen it yourself. It's pretty interesting. All right, so Ivan, if you want to zoom us out, one of the things we haven't really talked about at all this week is kind of the action happening in crypto. It's been kind of sideways action this week, but if you just look at the bigger picture at what's going on in the indices, kind of what's the vibe of the market right now? It seems like we're looking to pull back a bit here. So is that the kind of thing that you're seeing?
We're seeing our sector rotation. Interest rates started to perk up last week. This is the 10-year yield. As you can see, it kind of bounced in the past few days as we received another inflation report that was above estimates. And we saw a couple of those in February. The market didn't care. Now we're seeing the same in March. So the market is starting to care a little bit that maybe inflation might be coming back for a little bit, especially right ahead of the FOMC next week, where the Fed is expected to be a little bit more hawkish. And so definitely we saw rotation into inflation related sectors. Like energy was super strong. It's been going up straight for the past 2 weeks. Basic materials, anything from copper to gold has been super strong. So definitely rotation into basic materials while the tech is pulling back. And in a typical bull market, that's a healthy rotation, as long as it doesn't last for too long. And so far, it's just a slight pullback when the leaders are pulling back, and there's some rotation into energy and basic materials. So that's what we have so far on the big picture side. Just a rotation.
Yeah, good rotation. I was saying European financials, Peru, which may be copper and commodities. EPU, I think, is, look at the European banks left for dead. Look at Peru, EPU.
Yeah, basic material related.
Look at that. Wow. Look at XLE. I'm long XLE. These companies are printing money right now, and that is a great base. Relative strength rising. This could go.
So I would love to actually.
It's not going to double. It's not going to double, but that's not the way the markets work all the time. There's nothing wrong with quick 20, 30% gain. Look at gold. Like when it broke out finally, it was a quick 20% move.
I would love to bring up some of the community comments here because I think they relate to some of these kind of bigger topics and hit on some of these trends. And so, starting off with one of our longtime users and one of my favorite guys, Synaptric on the streams, he was talking exactly about this, which is the fact that lagging oil stocks are now catching bids, and is this a genuine new trend happening in oil? Sentiment is still really brutal around these names. Is this time to think about thinking about some of these longs now?
There've been some hot setups in oil stocks. Stocks that are looking a lot better than XLE, and as Howard pointed out, XLE is looking very constructively, like FTI, TDW. There's definitely been some interesting setups in the energy space in the past few weeks. So if you're just a purely technical, just based on the technical action, you could have been long some of those names, even not knowing anything about the fundamentals and interest rates.
Well, you could look at the Honda chart versus the EV chart and go, wait a minute, hasn't the story been electric over oil for the last 6 years, 7, 8 years? And if you look at the Toyota stock, shouldn't you say, well, if hybrids win, that's a little better for oil than just EV? So there's just that little tick if Honda and Toyota hybrids are winning. That's half oil is better than zero oil. I'm talking about if you care about oil. I don't care about.
If you wanted to bet on the trend, what specific tickers are you looking at to go long?
I'm not good enough, so XLE should provide enough boost. I'm not going to dig into the tickers. I'm just going to go ETF.
Oh, makes sense. All right. Any other thoughts on oil on the trend? You guys covered it pretty well. All right, let's move on to
move on.
Go ahead.
Move on. No, move
All right. So we got the powerful Don Corleone, asking kind of taking a step back, asking more kind of big four macroeconomic tailwinds. What are the big risks that you see from a long-term perspective in markets here, looming any apocalyptic scenario? So what are the big risks in equity markets right now?
I mean, one of them is, if inflation comes back, even though the Fed has shown that they're willing to keep interest rates high, and but if the inflation persists and if they have to raise rates, that would be a huge surprise for the market, and we will see a pretty significant pullback if they have to raise rates at some point, even if it's just 25 basis points. That will be a huge surprise for the market because it's not priced in. The market is priced in 75 basis points of cuts this year and a lot more than that next year. So anything on that front for me would be a big shock for the market. And obviously with the election coming up in November, we're going to see the usual heightened volatility ahead of them. These are the two main events that I see that could cause a lot of volatility in the market and some significant short-term pullbacks. Howard?
For me, I'm watching two things, right? In the digital world, we're seeing really silly, frothy behavior. You can't, it's like Coco, I can't cover everything, but I can. One thing I believe and feel is that the crypto market kind of takes care of itself, right? You get this money made in Bitcoin, Ethereum, let's call it Solana, to the big three, and then that money creeps into speculative, digital assets. It's the same cycle over again, only to get lost. The good thing about crypto, and it kind of kills its own inflation by the few leading the many into the slaughter in shit coins. Right now, you see it in meme coins, which is a more fun version of shit coins. What's great about that, great. I mean, there's nothing great. It's fun. What's interesting about that is it's killing its own inflation. That money is staying there, not buying goods and services to drive up. In the old days, and when it was just the stock market in the 90s, you get this behavior where people go buy apartments and Porsches and spend their money at bars and strip clubs and whatever men did that made money in the markets. It would come out of the market and get spent on bonuses, et cetera, in Wall Street, and it would drive prices up. In the crypto market, they're farting around. They're just lighting their money on fire. So it kind of kills its own inflation over there. So again, I don't read too much into the speculation that's happening in crypto because the money burns itself. Okay. In the real world, we do have inflation. Of course we have inflation. The world is shrinking and you have these massive wealth differentials, right? So of course you have inflation, right? And you have money printing that's gone on forever. But at the other hand, you have this incredible amount of money in the system, right, that wants to be invested. So you're seeing this rotation that Ivan and I have been talking about for a while, which is generally healthy. So until kind of I see something different, the trend remains your friend. You're seeing pullbacks in software. It's not like easy to make money every day in the stock market. So I think it's pretty healthy behavior overall, but just people should realize that, maybe they don't cut rates and that maybe prices like Adobe are risky because they're 30, 40 times earnings and there's very little room for error. So not everything is working.
We had Raul Paul come onto our platform this week and offer and do a great AMA. And one of his big bets is, he's very bullish on crypto and has, most of his assets tied up in this space. And one of the things that, we didn't really get to, and I thought it was a good question, is if you're someone that has most of your assets tied up into crypto and Bitcoin specifically, what comes to mind as a way to hedge that bet?
Well, if you really are a Bitcoin maximalist, and I know a few, and I had dinner with one last week in LA, whose friends are not Bitcoin maximalists, and he's been right, and he continues to believe that Bitcoin is really the only hedge against what's going on in the world, and really understands how to buy Bitcoin, and very comfortable, selling his real world assets to own Bitcoin as the only way to, preserve capital for generations. I'm sure if you talked to gold people 1,000 years ago that were hoarding gold, you would have called them insane. So, and it's been a pretty good hedge over thousands of years. So again, I think, Bitcoin in a short period of time has proven that it's like insanely maybe the best asset over the first 14 years of any kind of category. So I'm not going to be the person that bets against it. So, I don't think there is a hedge. Why would you hedge something that's working? You hedge it by like finding a better asset or by finding something that's the opposite. And the opposite of Bitcoin is something with infinite supply. And why would I want to hedge it with that? So no, I think the people that own Bitcoin and love Bitcoin have a thesis and it's not broken and they're going to continue to hodl it. Go ahead, Ivan.
I mean, I don't know how to hedge it. I really don't know. I assume that most people that have a lot of money in Bitcoin also have a lot of money in other assets, and their hedge is Bitcoin is their hedge.
Correct.
So
you don't hedge a hedge, meaning the people that love Bitcoin, that is their hedge. 5 minutes.
All right. Really appreciate that. All right, let's wrap up. Give the people as far as what on your radar for next week. What are the big plays that stand out to you, and what looks interesting just for people to keep an eye on.
I mean, I don't have any interesting for next week. I know that NVIDIA has their big AI conference, so we might see some bounce there earlier in the week, right before the FOMC. It will be interesting to see if semiconductors attempt a short-term bounce, and if it will hold or they'll just continue to roll over. So this is something that I'll be watching for really short-term trades in semis, like Monday, Tuesday.
For me, just to not be political, but the TikTok thing is so interesting, right?
Oh, yeah. Let's see how Meta reacts in Google.
Yeah. So Reddit is about to IPO next week. What's on the radar as far as that?
An incredible segue into like what's an important topic to me. You just cut me the fuck off.
I'm sorry. I thought it was relevant. Reddit, social media, TikTok. It's in the cards.
Okay. So let's just take 2 seconds here to talk about what I think is super important. Meaning, I started StockTwits, so I think I have a little skin in this game. I'm going to start with Twitter. I can't believe how little. I've quit it many times for a week or 2 or 3 weeks. I can't believe how little I use it. And I can't believe how much my wife, Ellen, uses Instagram Reels. So if you'd asked me a year ago, could I take Twitter off my iPhone? I said no, I'd keep it there forever, but it got me so angry that it's very unproductive app, like probably the most unproductive of all the apps, right? And if you ask a lot of kids about TikTok, they will tell you straight to your face, it's fucking addictive, right? I see it. They tell you this. They have to like literally pull themselves away. Then if I watch my wife at any spare moment, she's hooked on Instagram Reels, not watching politics, but makeup, food, you know, influencers. So we live in this really niched off world. I think social is dead. I think it's alive for marketing and it's alive for, people, everybody has their different category. I don't think Twitter is dead. I think it's dead as it once was, right? You saw Elon this week kicking off Don Lemon after saying it's a free speech platform. How many times does Elon have to lie straight to your face and say Twitter's free speech before he does something? TikTok is an incredibly Chinese company. Okay, you say what you want. The fact that it got away with what it got away with in the light of Facebook and Twitter not being allowed in China is crazy. But what creeps me out is who puts up their hand first in the United States to buy TikTok? Steve Mnuchin. Okay, like that's disgusting. That first of all, that he's just so full of himself that immediately he puts up his hand. It's the last people that I trust to run TikTok in the United States is uber Republicans or uber Democrats, right? So, we're going to be very careful of the overlords that we're going to get when TikTok is now distributed by Congress. So I worry about that. Reddit is the internet. Okay, I've said this before, if we pull up Reddit. I am very fascinated by this story because very few people have a strong opinion about it. Okay, so it'll be really interesting to see when something is this deep and spread out around the world as one of the largest sites on the internet, how it behaves when it actually goes public. I mean, Tommy, you probably have the most to say about this, so we'll let you chime in. But I don't know what will happen with this. It does not make money. I'm skeptical of, I don't use the product, but I'm skeptical of these deals that they cut for data, right? With, Sam Altman being on being OpenAI and spending, what they're going to spend on data, and he's the largest shareholder of Reddit. So I don't know what will happen with the stock. I do know that they'll have 800 million-ish if the IPO gets done. And like I said with Robinhood earlier, that's an incredible amount of money in a very overvalued stock in today's world to go do acquisitions and become like a niche. They could own a lot of niche media businesses and really do the Twitter playbook of being the place, right? To just slow down Reddit, to give it more signal for regular users. So I think there's an incredible chance for Reddit to parlay this IPO into being one of the best media, forget tech, being one of the best media companies in the world. They could go buy Barry Weiss. They could go buy Comedy Central. They could go buy a lot of things. And so one of my theses, guys, sorry to go on this long, is that if we really look at the three of us, different ages, different places we were born, I think we would all agree that like it's really only 10 to 20% on each side that's far right or far left. And that, the middle is 50 to 70% of people that on any 8 topics, we're going to see important topics, we're going to see pretty much eye to eye. And so I think Reddit has that chance. I don't know if they're thinking this, but to be that middle, and to really, give people both the edges and the middle. And that's what I'm excited about. What Twitter did wrong with the middle is by focusing so much on the right or the left, because that's who Elon is. When you're in the middle and both sides seem crazy, you just leave. You're just like, I get what they're doing to me here. They're making me crazy. And that's what Twitter has done to the middle. So I think Reddit should do the opposite and embrace the middle. And so I'm excited to see it as if they're thinking that way. But that to me is the best long-term play, is to use their edge knowledge and own the middle.
But are you buying the IPO, Howard?
No, I never buy an IPO until it trades for a while. So no.
You're not as excited about Reddit as you were for Chipotle.
Right. Ivan has a great memory. Chipotle is the first, because of my daughter, 20 years ago. We bought that stock the day of the IPO. Didn't hold it till today, but It was probably the only time I've ever bought an IPO and didn't care what the price was. Good memory, Ive.
So you have a good track record with buying IPOs then?
Yeah, I just think as a regular user, why are you going to trust the banks to price this? Like, you better have some really inside feeling. Cloudflare is something that I was in the friends and family offering and got to buy some shares at the actual. I didn't have to pay up. I got to buy some shares at the actual IPO price, which is another reason I love to buy IPOs. I didn't even know that existed. So no, let it season, let it trade for 3 to 6 months. That's my opinion there. Ivan, you're the same way, I think.
Yeah, I would wait, definitely.
Okay. But,
all right, guys.
How excited are you? Wait a minute. Tell me, how excited are you?
I'm really excited. Like, I think I view it a little bit differently than you, where I actually do see Twitter as a kind of middle platform. And the real strength of why I'm betting on kind of StockTwits and Reddit as a whole is because I believe in the nichification of communities. And what's ultimately interesting is that you can go to a Reddit, a water subreddit, and there's going to be 1,000 people with incredibly strong opinions of the best way to drink water. And I think that the future of the internet is going to be built around these niche communities, having a very particular interest in being able to verticalize that to the nth degree. And that's what the subreddit communities have been so successful at. And, as far as being able to run a business, I have no clue. But I mean, that's the future of the internet and online community as a whole. So,
but you just endorsed what I'm saying. And that's because you're smart, but you just didn't realize what you said. They own the niche. When you own the niche, move. If you truly own the niche, then turn the data, like we're doing at StockTwits quickly with Trends with Friends and other things. When you own the lean in, and when you own all the smartest people talking at a granular level, you need to inside out it and give people a much cleaner look. I don't drive into Reddit because don't want to be an expert in every subject. So I think Reddit has this chance to kind of, since I already own the granular, to present it in a way that's like Reddit lean back, which is kind of like what YouTube did with their homepage. We need a better view of how deep these niches go. And Reddit's in the best position to do that. And Twitter has done a terrible job of that. So I disagree with you on the Twitter thing. I believe with this $800 million, and if they really are good management, they could flip it and turn Reddit inside out and create the best media company in the world.
I'd agree. I'm not betting against them. All right, guys. Really appreciate your time. Thank you all for tuning in for another episode.
Hang on. Ivan, how's the baby?
Oh, he's doing really well. Waking up every couple hours, so it's difficult.
Well, that makes me smile. Someone else should be looking at. Hey, Ivan, how many languages does the little guy speak?
Oh, I'm talking to him in two languages, so I hope to Bulgarian and English. So
good for you. And then, is he playing volleyball yet?
Not yet, but I'm hoping soon. Yeah.
Are you playing YouTube volleyball videos?
Not yet.
And then when can I see him?
I don't know, maybe in a couple of weeks. Are you in San Diego?
Okay. Yeah, I'm in San Diego, so we'd like to come see him.
Okay, we'll figure that out.
That was a no. Did you see that, Tommy? Just blew me off.
Yeah, later.
Yeah. How we got blown off. All right.
Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it.
Bye.
See you guys. Bye.